over a 3-month period, I've been running an experiment, right? I've been tracking the biggest, most successful CRM platforms, but specifically their YouTube channels. Matt, you've heard of the term funnel hacking, right? What's funnel hacking for those who haven't heard that before?
Funnel hacking is where you basically are modeling success. You find a funnel that's successful and you model it for your own business.
Yeah. And I approach YouTube channel audits, YouTube channel analysis the same way, but how do you know because there's so many YouTube channels out there, people can you'll end up pulling your hair out, going insane trying to figure out who you need to pay attention to and who you can, you don't really need to pay close attention to the other ones because they're just not getting the results. They're not getting, and the beautiful thing about YouTube is that it's got a fantastic feedback loop. Okay. There's a lot of public facing data that I don't have to have access to their YouTube studio. I don't have to have access to their back end to determine how successful their YouTube channel is, right? So if you can picture the entire marketplace, attention in the marketplace as a giant pie, how big of that piece of the pie are you controlling in YouTube? And why YouTube? Well, I mean, yeah, I'm biased because I'm a YouTube expert, but it is the number 2 website on the planet. It's the number 2 search engine on the planet, the number 1 video platform on the planet. So my interpretation is that these massive CRM platforms should probably be investing a certain amount of their budget, a certain amount of their activity and their energy into a platform like YouTube, especially since these are marketing experts at the end of the day. So I would expect to see these platforms, these CRM businesses performing well in YouTube. And I got to tell you, I came up with some pretty interesting stats, some pretty interesting data here that shows us certain CRMs are kicking butt, and other CRMs that you might expect would be kicking butt are not doing so well. So yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Can we talk quick about what kind of content they're producing, or is that going to come later?
Yeah. Oh, we could definitely dive into that. Well, that's more of a deep dive analysis on specific channels. And that's that when people ask me what we're doing here is we're going to isolate which channels are performing the best. And then once you identify which channels are performing the best, then you would actually dive into their content. Okay, let's figure out what buckets of content they're using. Are they tutorial videos? Do they have a podcast? Are they doing more of a talking head style, educational heavy? Do they do any kind of entertainment at all? Do they do challenges?
What did you notice when you were doing this? What did you notice that they were mostly doing that was effective?
That's a really great question. And unfortunately, I probably saw a lot of things that are not working. I saw a lot more of video content that's not performing well. But ultimately, I think what a lot of these CRMs are doing is they're literally just throwing up tutorial videos on their YouTube channels. And those are valuable, right? Because you and I, we're professional marketers. You and I all the time go onto YouTube, and because maybe we have an integration problem, right? Maybe we're trying to upload a contact list of our emails into the CRM, or so we're running into some kind of technical problem. How many times have you gone to YouTube and say, how can I, or how do I, blah, blah, blah. So absolutely, yeah. Those kinds of tutorial videos will pop up. And that's exactly one of the reasons why YouTube is so powerful. But it's that's also really how do I say this? That's more of a reactive way of using YouTube and not really a proactive way of using YouTube is what I'm saying.
Well, I think any CRM any software business should have their tutorials on YouTube.
Oh, agreed.
Right? Yeah. I think that's 100%.
Agreed. That should be one bucket. Yeah.
Yeah, but when they start creating content to create valuable content, should that be on their main channel or start another channel for that? What do you think? Oh,
that's a really great question. And what I'm going to show you on this spreadsheet is some of these businesses actually do have multiple YouTube channels.
Oh, okay.
Which I absolutely love. What a lot of them have done is they've created a community YouTube channel, which I think is brilliant. I think this is where I applaud any of these CRM platforms that have created multiple channels, because they recognize that it's a very different kind of viewer. Sometimes they break up different channels for geographic regions. They'll have their Canada, their main US account, their different geographic regions, because for whatever reason they might have different products and services available for different geographic regions, and then they know that the content that's really successful and popular in the US doesn't necessarily isn't exactly going to be valuable in other parts of the world for whatever reason, right? So, yeah.
Right. So what can we get out of this data? After you finish everything, what's the expectation that somebody can learn from understanding the data?
Well, this particular data set is probably the most valuable if you are a CRM platform. I mean,
right. But I'm just saying, let's say you did this because you could do this for any kind of, we did this before for people who are in the space of creating content for creators, right? I remember one thing that we learned was we didn't think that the full episode, the long form, the 1 hour podcast video would outperform the clips. I thought the clips would get more views because they're more topical inside, right? But what we found with all the main podcast YouTubers was that their full episode got more views than the clips. Maybe the clips, when you combine them all, maybe, I don't know. But I think for the most part, people really enjoy just kind of, getting to know that YouTuber, that podcaster. So they're just listening to the full episodes, right? Which was surprising to me. I didn't think that. And that was one thing that we learned.
I think, and you're right. I think Joe Rogan really made that long format, 3 hour long kind of interview format video content really popular. I think he really kicked that style off. I don't know how popular it was before Joe, but yeah, you're totally right. I mean, the shorter clips tends to be just another way that these YouTube content creators can just repurpose the content and get a lot more bang for their buck, right? Because now they're using the same piece of content multiple times, which we're doing as well. Yeah. So
yeah. I'll just give you an example of like, that was one thing that I learned when you did the analysis, right? So what kind of things can people expect to learn if you did an analysis like this for their industry or for their business?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So it takes a lot of time to do a proper YouTube channel audit, so YouTube channel analysis, to identify what's working, what's not working. Because you're not only identifying the kinds of buckets of content that they're creating, which is basically, when I say a bucket, it's a bunch of videos that are all following the same format, the same look and feel. Like you might have a podcast bucket, you might have a tutorial bucket, like we just said, right? It takes a lot of effort to, you said you gave the definition of the funnel hack. It takes a lot of effort to do a YouTube hack. It does. It's a lot of time. So I'm going to be sharing 23 YouTube channels with you here, so that we can quickly identify who's really slaying it, who's really doing well, not only in a particular period of time, but over time, over this 3-month experiment that I ran. And then if you were a competitor to these people, then you could follow a similar analysis like this, so that you can focus your attention on the winning channels. The leaders always have the arrows in the back, right? Success leaves clues. So you're not going to waste your time focusing on ABC channel that's at the very bottom of the list. You're going to focus all your time on the XYZ channel, not copying their content, but you want to analyze, why is it their content is outperforming the averages on a consistent basis? Because clearly this channel has a very similar audience to the one that you're targeting, or the one that you have. I mean, we're using CRMs in this particular lesson, that, if we can call this a lesson, but for whoever is listening or watching this episode right now, you need to identify who your competitors are, who your comparables are. They don't even have to be direct competition, as long as they have a very similar audience, a very similar kind of viewer that you're attempting to target. And then that way, when you're getting ready to launch a brand new channel, or let's say your YouTube channel is pretty flat, let's say it's like plateaued, hasn't really seen a lot of growth for a while, this is a fantastic exercise for you to run through, so that you can identify who are the movers and shakers in your space, in your vertical, and why is it that they're doing so much better than you. And then you can apply what works and discard the rest. That's the idea.